What's up, dogs? TheOdie here, and are you guys interested in making puzzles like this? Then I'm gonna show you exactly just how to. So here on my screen, I just have a door and the player, and within the door, we have a blank page here, and on the next page, which is controlled by self switch A, it actually goes through the motions of opening a door. And the first thing you guys will want to have is your graphic. And for the most part, yeah, I know it's very basic, but I thought it would do perfectly or just as fine for this tutorial. And the important thing here is that you want to make sure that each of the numbers, in my case, maybe yours are symbols, is that they're each on their own layer. And these, of course, are what's going to be interacted between. So upon exporting, what I do is I hide all the others, and I export it out like this. And I go through the motions, all the way with this one being the backdrop. So after that, you do want to put it into your game folder, and if you do not know where that is, you can go through game, open folder, into images, into pictures, and you want to drop it off in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Control cut and control paste. So there it all is now. So the first thing we want to do is when the player approaches and interacts with the door, we want to show all of the images. So I'm going to go into door and do exactly just that. Show picture with ID 1 being DP backdrop. That is the door itself. And this is okay to leave as is. If you have not used pictures before, then feel free to do experiment with upper left and center. If you do choose to do center, then the way to get the picture into, well, the center is to do a little bit of math with your X and Y. And the math here is, if we go into our database, into system 2, we can see our width and height. And if you were to divide both by 2, so 408 and 312, we will see that that is indeed the center. I actually forgot if I said that right. I got it backwards. And I could test it out by highlighting and pressing Control R. And there we go. It's perfectly in the center. But I rather not mess with numbers, so I'm going to just keep it in upper left and 0, 0. And by the way, yes, all of my images, including the numbers, are all the same size for width and height as my game screen. So if you're a 1920 by 1080, then please make sure to export your files or to create your images such as they are 1920 by 1080. Okay, so to continue onwards, we will do the rest for all the other pictures. And as I do this, I want you to make a note about the picture ID versus the image. So notice the pattern that picture ID is 4, image is DP3, and then it's going to be 5 and DP4. So DP will always be 1 less than the picture image. And I want you to notice this as a pattern because it will, well, strike back again in the future as we go throughout this process. Okay, so I now have all my images showing, and I just want to put an interaction with the player where he goes, whoa, there are numbers I can press on this here door. I'll put it in the same text box so it's not lengthy. There must be an order here. So it's very favorable to constantly test your process just to make sure everything is on the right page and everything is going well. And sorry for the loud ping. I had my audio on pretty much max. And that's what we got so far. Okay. So the next step is to create our cursor. But before we actually build the visual cursor, let's build a cursor for the computer. And what I mean by that is if I go back to my graphic, and I want it so that if the player were to press right, it will go to 2. If they press down, it'll go to 5. If they press left, it'll go to 4. And if they press up, it'll go to 5. And then very similarly with 2, left 1, down 6, up 6, right 3, and so on and so forth for all of my numbers. So yes, it does sound very, very manual, but it is indeed the easiest way to go about it. So while I can create the brains to control this within the same event of the door, I'd much rather use a common event. It'll keep this map nice and clean, and me being the creator of this here program, I don't know exactly where to find it. So I'm going to call this door puzzle, and this one will be cursor. Apply. And just like I said, we're going to create some conditional branches over in page 4 where it's buttons, and we're going to start with down. Apply. So the control here is that I'm going to have a variable that will define the location of each of these numbers. So that if I have a variable and I call it, I'll create it here. I'll call it dp underscore cursor, where dp is of course door puzzle, and we'll start it at 1. Okay, so going back to my image, this one will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I press down, then it'll be from 1 and it'll be set to 5. If I press right, it'll now be equal to 2. If I press left, it'll now be equal to 4. And up, 5. So let's manually do just that. So if down is being pressed, and if the current variable, aka the cursor, is equal to 1, then down is going to 5. So I'm going to set this as 5. And I'm going to do exactly just that for all of the other numbers. The important thing here is to ensure that when you do create the conditional branching, you do put it in the else branch. And the reason for that is because if we are at 1 and I were to press down, then it will be set to 5. But in the assumption that this is outside the else branch, well, now it equals 5, and it will run the insides of this. And of course, you don't want that to happen. So please make sure that they are in the else branch. I'm going to continue this in a ascending numerical pattern from 1 through 8. So for 2, if I press down, it'll be 6. And then at 3, if I press down, it'll be 7. And so on and so forth. 4 will be 8, 5 will be 1, 6 will be 2, 7 will be 3, and 8 will be 4. So by the way, have you noticed a pattern with down? And this is mostly because of my order of how I have my picture. I can actually do a shortcut here where I say if dp cursor is 4 or less, then dp cursor will add 8. Because 2 goes to 6, 3 goes to 7, 4 goes to 8. So I can actually delete all of this. And if it isn't, then instead of adding 8, it'll subtract by 4. Instead of adding 4, it'll subtract by 4. And if we look at the picture, 5 minus 4 is 1, 6 minus 4, 7 minus 4, 8 minus 4, and it works out that way. So there is a little bit of a pattern based on how you organize your images. And please make sure to make note of that when you do create your images and attempting to create any shortcuts in your code, as I did here. So moving on, we are going to go from down to, I believe the next step is left. Yeah, but I'm going to just go ahead and do up first, because you'll notice that it's very, very similar. And as a matter of fact, I think it is exactly the same. So 1 going up, 2 going up, 3 going up, 4 going up. and then so that's plusing 4 and then 8. Yep, so they're exactly the same. Isn't that awesome? So I'm gonna leave that be, and I'm gonna create an else branch, paste it in, and now we're gonna do left. Now left, I don't believe I have that luxury in the shortcut, and let's just go ahead and double check. So if I were to press left here, then it'll be 4. 4 will go to 3, 3 to 2, 2 to 1. So yeah, there's the luxury isn't there, but you'll probably notice that 1 is the only one that goes back to 4. Everything else does subtract by 1. So what I'm gonna do here is test if DP cursor is equal to 1. Then I'm just gonna have it set to 4. Otherwise, it can just subtract by 1. Now we will have to change this based on how the bottom pattern works. So I'm going to go ahead and double check that. So 5 will go to 8. 8 minus 1 minus 1 minus 1. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just take this, control copy, control paste, delete this, and now I'm going to go into here for 5. And instead of setting it to 4, it's going to set to 8. And that's what we got. So we'll double check this manually. If it's 5, press left. Well, it doesn't equal 1, equals 5, it'll go to 8. Sweet. Okay, if it's 8, doesn't equal 1, doesn't equal 5, it'll go to 7. Alright, so that all works out. So I'm going to just take this, control copy, paste it in here, because the last one we got left is right. So right is very similar to left, except the only opposition here is 4 will go to 1 and 8 will go to 5. And of course, they will be incrementing instead of decrementing. So I'm going to just change this to add. And I'm going to just swap these two together. So this will be 1 and the else branch, the condition will be 4. Then for this one, the condition will be 8. And it will be equivalent. It will be set to 5. Okay, so now we have all that control in process. And just to make this look a little bit cleaner, I'm gonna hit create a comment. And just say that this one's the right, because after all, what sticks out more than a highlighted color of green? Though if you're colorblind, not again. Now it looks a lot better. So now this will work for the computer. The computer now understands where the cursor is, but visually as the player does not know. So we're going to show where the cursor is to the player through highlights within the cursor, or within the images to represent the cursor. So this will be dp underscore highlight. So we're going to go here into page 2 for tip picture. And if the cursor is at 1, remember that the ID for picture 1 is 2. And we're just going to highlight it all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'll go with 204, so 12 times. I'm not actually counting. I don't know why I did it to begin with. Alright, so I'm going to untick wait for completion and change this to 1. And of course, you will need a conditional branch where it says if the cursor is set to 1, then bada bing, bada boom. And of course, you will copy and paste this for all of your other ones. But what if I were to tell you that we can do this with a single line of code? And this is exactly what we're going to do. However, you guys will have to be comfortable with creating scripts. So I'm just going to open up this nice, neat spreadsheet. If you guys have seen my pathfinding script, then you'll know exactly what this is. But if you haven't, then this is a very, very nice script call, or a library of script calls that someone great on the internet has put together for us. It will be linked down below, but for what we're specifically looking for is tint picture. So we can actually do the same effects of temp picture, but we write it as a script. So I'm actually going to take all of this and do control copy, go back into my RPG Maker file and script and paste it here. And I'm going to just hit OK for now, apply. And you're going to see that comparatively, it actually looks very similar to that line of code that we see up here. So what we're going to do is change the innards. Innards sounds gross. So note that the control variable for DP cursor is ID 29. So what I'm going to do is where it says picture ID, I'm going to change that to game variable dot value 29. Is it game variables or just variable? I think it's variables. It's variables. And essentially what this little line of code or little section of code does is that it sends back the value or returns the value of variable ID 29, which is the cursor. So if DP cursor equals 2, then this value will equal 2. But remember what I said about the IDs of these images and their picture ID. So as we see here, DP1 is 2, 2 is 3, and so on and so forth. However, if we go back into my code over into door puzzle cursor, you'll notice that it actually starts at 1. Cursor 1 equals 4. So what you can do is that you can change all of these values to correspond with the ID of the image, or you can just do what I'm going to do over here and say +1. Why? Because if DP underscore cursor equals 1, 1 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, picture ID 2 is image of the number 1. So a little bit confusing there, but it'll make a lot more sense the more you stare at it and study it mentally. So the tone is as we see over here, except it's what's known as an array. And we will be working with arrays in a little bit, but just so you guys know immediately, an array is essentially a single variable that stores multiple values. So this array holds 4 values, but it's actually one variable. Or you're going to see that it's one variable. So for duration, it's 1 frame, so 1. Apply. And now that we have it like this, we can actually delete this and apply. So now we got the highlighting in motion. However, if the player is on this one and the player were to press around, then guess what? This one will remain highlighted, and as the cursor goes through all of the numbers, all of them will also be highlighted. So what we have to do is actually reset all of the numbers back to its default tint of 0, 0, 0, 0. So to do that, what I'm going to do is a tint picture, and we're going to do 2, set this to 1, uncheck this, apply. And we're going to do that for each of our images. And the reason we're going to do this is because this will actually be triggered on a parallel process, which reminds me that this is going to be triggered on an auto run. And the switch that it's going to activate upon is one I'm going to create now called door puzzle. And they will both behave based on door puzzle. The reason you want this to be on auto run is because we're testing the conditions of the arrow keys. And of course, if the player is pressing arrow keys in a parallel process, then the player will move around on the map underneath the image. And then once you're done with the image and you delete the image, the player will be in the random location of the room, and it will be super duper awkward. So we want that on auto run. The other thing to note with auto run is that it actually works a lot faster than parallel process. I actually forgot to switch this from is being pressed to is being triggered. So I'm going to do that for all of them. And the sneaky thing about auto run and is being triggered is that the auto run actually runs so fast that the if condition for being triggered kind of misses its timing. So what I'm going to do is add a wait timer for 1 frame. And I'll show you this now, and then I'll show you it after with the 1 frame removed. So you can actually see it for comparison. So I totally forgot that we actually have to set the variable as 1, and we want to set it right here. So control variable door puzzle cursor equals to 1, and we also want to turn on the switch. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna press down, right, left, and now I'm gonna hold down left. So it only goes 1. I'm gonna press down, up, holding down right, and you'll see that it actually works the way I want it to. And now I'm going to delete the wait timer, and you're going to see the difference that it makes there. So I'm going to press right, I'm going to press left, press down, left, I'm going to hold down left. See, it misses the timing because auto run actually moves so much more faster and the program cannot keep up with itself. So we add the wait timer to fix that. So I'm going to head on over to door puzzle and explain that because this is a parallel process, it is extremely, and I mean extremely important that you have this line of code at the very bottom. If we were to have it on the very top, then you're going to notice that the highlighting will not visually work. And there you see it. Or rather, you don't see it. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. Okay. So in case you're wondering if we could actually just replace all of this code with something similar to this, except with 0, 0, 0, we can't exactly do that. And the reason for it is because, remember, this portion here says what the cursor is currently on. So if the cursor is on 1, but it's not on 2 through 8, then it's not going to reset it back to 0. So it's extremely important that you do write out the library like this, or write out the data set like this. So now I'm going to head on back over to door puzzle cursor, where this else branch is after the right, or right's else branch. And the reason for that is because now we need to add the interaction of the OK button. So I'm going to go to conditional branch into the 4th page. OK is being triggered. OK, apply. And when the OK is being pressed, then we need to create a switch for each of those numbers. So that would mean we have to create, god damn it, 8 switches? 1 for each of our numbers? Ugh, what a waste of switches. Well, what if I were to tell you we can actually use only 1 variable? That variable being an array. dp_array. Remember what I said about this being array? 1 variable holding 4 values. Well, we can create 1 variable to hold 8 values. And we can do that by going to the script here and going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now we got an array of 8 values, all equaling 0, where 0 it means false and 1 would mean true. So I'm actually going to take this, cut it, and put it inside here where everything gets initialized. And then I'm going to go back into my database. And then over here, what I'm going to do is I do have to write it as a script call, or as a script, not a call, just a script, or maybe it is a call. Well, as a script. And I'm going to type in game variables.value, and I believe its value was 30, but I'm just gonna double check. Yep, it is 30. 30, and this is how we interact with the element of the array. Except the thing about arrays is that it actually starts at position 0. So I think it will be better if I show you through here. So this one over here is position 0. This is position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But each of these positions will represent the true or false state of each of these images, where true means that the player has hit the enter button and it has been selected, and 0 or false being it has not been selected yet or it has been disabled. So if I want to talk about 1, then that means I have to declare for position 0. And if I want to talk about 2, that's position 1. If I wanted to talk about the number 8, that's position 7. So I know we saw this where we were incrementing by 1 over in the cursor, or in the highlight. We see it here, we're incrementing by 1. Well, this time we're going to be decrementing by 1, so minus 1. So what I have right now is game variables.value 30, 30 being the array. Now we're going to dig into the element of the array. Well, we can actually use the value of the cursor. So what I'm going to type here is game variables.value 29. And we want minus 1. So for example, if our cursor is at 1, then it's going to spit out 1, minus 1, 0, array its position at 0, and we're going to set it equal to 1. And if that does not make sense, feel free to ask below in the comment section. I or someone else who does understand will be able to help you. So I will need to create a conditional branch, and I'm actually going to take everything that this says, control copy, and I'm going to go to page 4, script, and paste it in here. So where this equal sign is, I'm going to do equal equal and change this 1 to a 0. And then I'm going to cut this and paste it in here. So what this says is, if its current state is false, then we're going to set it to true. And conversely, if it is true, then we're going to set it back to false. Just like that. So very simple true, false for an array at a given index. So now we're going to go back to DP highlight because we also want to show the player when something has been enabled or if something is currently disabled. So to show what that would look like, as an example for one of the elements, that would be something like this. And I'm just going to need to recopy this. So this says that if the current cursor minus 1, of course we can't test it like that for the same reason as to why we created this library. So I'm going to just open this up and change this to 0. So if index 0 of the array, aka image ID 2, which represents 1, if it is 0, then I can cut this and paste it in here. Otherwise, it has to equal 1 if it doesn't equal 0. I'm going to copy this, paste it in here, and then give it some set value. I think 136 will be fine. So it's less bright than the cursor, but bright enough for us to tell that it has been interacted with. So right now, 1 is our cursor. I'm going to go to 2. I'm going to go back to 1. I'm going to hit space to interact with it. Then I'm going to hit right, and we can see the difference there. Now I'm going to disable it, and then hit right. So there you guys have it. You can actually see the difference. And I think that's cool. Alright, so let's do that for the other numbers. So one thing we can do is control, copy, and paste it. Change this number here, and then control, paste, copy, paste, do it there. And of course that means we also have to change this, increment it. My abilities. You can imagine that if you don't have the right numbers that you like, how annoying it would be to have to readjust all of these for each and every single one of the ones that you have. And that's repetitious, it's a waste of time, it's annoyance, it's a hindrance, it's all kinds of negative words meaning bad stuff. So I'm going to show you guys something very, very neat, and that will also clean it up a lot more. So what I'm going to do is what's known as iteration. Whenever we're going through a cycle where pretty much each conditional branch or each step is doing the exact same thing between the different elements within the array, then we can create an iteration, aka a loop. So above this loop, I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to call it dp_i. So very often I will stand for iteration, but if you have multiple iterations, people will use different letters like N, K, L, P. You can use any letters. Hell, you don't even have to use a single letter. You can do that. But just so you know, in terms of, well, I guess the future. So I'm going to hit apply here. And what's even more unique about this iteration is I can actually have it start on 1 instead of 0 to make my life a little bit easier when it comes to defining the ID of the picture, or the cursor, which is actually what we're going to be working with. So with all loops, we have to think about the exit strategy of the loop, otherwise it will freeze, and we don't want that to happen because it will be stuck in an infinite loop. So I'm going to have a conditional branch, and it's going to work with dp_i, and if it equals 8, because that's how many there are, then actually I'm going to say 9, and it's going to make sense in a minute. If it's 9, then it will break. And just above that, we do want this dpi to increment. So you can tell that what this is doing is that it's starting from 1 and it's going to increment all the way to 9. Once it reaches 9, it breaks the loop and then it continues onward. So I actually need this to be cut and pasted inside here. And with this 0, the 0 being the position within the array, we're going to change that to game variables dot value, and this one is 31, but also -1. And the reason for that is because remember that the position starts at 0 and will go all the way up to 7. So by having this -1, this 1 minus 1 will be 0, and 0 will represent the image that is 0. So conversely, if you don't want to have this -1, you can have it start at 0 and go all the way to 8. The only reason I decided to start it at 1 is because that way it at least has a similar pattern to this over here. So that's easier for me to read in the future. So the next step is that we want to change these tents to code. So I'm going to take this, copy, paste it in here, and then make the changes. And I'll start with the color values because that's obvious and easy. And now for this one, well, what do we want to return? Remember, this is the ID of the picture. So dp, let's go through the loop together. If dp_i equals 1, then picture ID has to equal 2. So I do that. And there we have it. Equals 2. Hit OK. And that's legit it. It's as easy as that. So I'm going to take this, paste it in here, and I'm going to change those 136 all to zeros. And now that I have those, I can take this and delete it, delete this, and I can delete all of this up here as well. So kind of walk you through the process again to make sure we're all on the same page. dp_I equals 1 is going to go into a loop, okay? So let's go to this conditional branch. So the array at index, let's see, what's 31? 31 is dp_I, that's 1, so 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay, so at array position 0, if that is equal to 0, aka false, then the image will just look plain and normal. So if I were to read this code here, tint picture, what's the ID? What's the number of the ID? 31. 31 is dp_I. So that is 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so picture ID 2. And picture ID 2 is, of course, the image of 1. It's going to set it to its default image color of, well, as default. So then continuing on, it's going to skip this else because it went through here. We're going to go to this. dp_I will increment. Does it equal 9? No. So it's going to increment up here. And then it's going to run through the exact same process. This time, let's pretend that this one is active and true. So we go through here. This is looking for a position. So currently dp_I equals 2. So 2 minus 1 is 1. We're pretending that it's true. So we're going to go to here. So game variable.value 31. 31 is dpi. So that value is currently 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So picture ID 3 is going to be set this color. Alright. Hopefully that all makes sense to you. So once it finally goes through this loop, then it's going to go to this very bottom one where it will highlight the cursor as the more brighter color. So I'm going to press right, space, left, space, down, space, right, space, up, space, right, space, right, space, down, right, space, left, space, left, up, space, and you can see that all works out. Nice. Alright, so now we got a working cursor. We got working highlights. The last thing we got to do is test for the solution having been solved. So I'm going to go back to door_puzzle_cursor where the enter button is. And underneath it, at the very end, I'm going to have it call a common event. And that common event is one we're about to create, so it will be blanked. But of course, as I enter it here, dp_success, we're going to see back in here that it's been filled out. So here, we're just going to test if what we want is true versus false. So I'm going to hit OK. And because I'm lazy to retype everything out, I'll just take this, take all of its contents, and copy. Go back here, take this, page 4, script, paste it in. Except this one we're going to manually track with 0 all the way to, I think it's 7. Yeah, because there's 8 pictures. So that's why we're doing 7. So right now this is saying that if all of them are false, then it's assessed. Well, let's get 3 to be active. Let's get 6 to be active. And let's get 0 to be active. So again, just remember that the values is actually one larger than these arrays, their positions. So this is 1, this is 4, and this is 7. And upon being success, well, let's make a nice, cute little tone that's success. What sound do you guys like? Cows? You guys like cows? Oh, okay. And upon success, or it will moo. Lovely. It will moo. And let's also have the player go, I think I did it. And we're going to have to delete all of the images. So I'm erasing all the pictures 1 through 9 because number 1 is the backdrop. Yeah. And you know what? I think I'm gonna have the image erase first. The cow's gonna move. The guy's gonna celebrate. I can open the door now. And I'll just leave it as that. And we do want to turn off the switch door puzzle, as well as turn on a new switch that says door puzzle complete. Apply. So we're gonna have all this, and this is going to go in here. So I'm gonna hit OK here, go into this door, into page 2, and change this from a cell switch to a door puzzle complete. Okay. Oh, do you guys remember the passcode? I actually don't. Alright, let's see how good my memory is. I think it was this, and this. I think I did it! I can open the door now. And wasn't that just a beautiful moo? The greatest moo of all time. The moo of success. Wow. Whatever floats your boat. So if you do want to give it a little bit more life, I'm going to take this moo and I'm going to go into these cursors, and after each of these buttons being triggered, I'm just gonna play a sound effect. I'm gonna be normal. I'm sorry guys, I'm more normal than y'all, so it's just gonna be a cursor. So boom, 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 and then we also probably want something for when the space button gets pressed. Let's just, yeah, why not do that cursor. And yeah, cow moves. And just to add a little bit more drama, we'll wait here, apply, okay. Oh, that's ridiculous. Let's have the cow move before it waits a second. Ah, yeah, that's wonderful. And there you guys have it. All that you need. So of course, if you want to change your passcodes, you can change it out through these numbers here. Some of you guys who are brand new to arrays and iteration may find this portion a little bit confusing, so feel free to ask questions down below. If you want something that's more in-depth, then you guys can check out this expert video in the top right corner. We actually build the line of sight code, and we take it from the most literal sense and we compact it down to a friendly end user where the programmer only needs 3 or 4 variables in a common event to make it work. However, the meat and potatoes of it uses a lot of arrays and uses a lot of iteration. It goes very in depth to those things, and if you're only interested in learning about the arrays or the iterations, then you can skip based on the timestamps within the descriptions. It's been a while since I last had coffee before recording. I think this tutorial went great. If I did go a bit too fast, or I didn't explain something clearly enough, or something was a little bit confusing, then let me know down in the comments below. I'm happy to help. Other than that, there you guys go. Now you can create stuff like a professional. No longer do you have to make boring puzzles. I forgot what I was gonna say. No longer do you have to make boring puzzles that only uses the events or the sprites within the map. Now you can do things a little bit more outside the box, and I guess not really fully outside the box, because this is pretty staple in puzzle horror games, or horror games in general. But now you got something in your toolkit, which I think is awesome. Have fun with it, make something awesome. Hopefully you got a lot better artistical skills than I have. My door was pretty pathetic, but hey, it was a door and it had numbers on it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, and if you want to see more of what I'm creating, then here it is, right there. I'm starting to get it, but I have to cheat and look on my OBS screen in order to do so. See you guys in the next one. Till then, oh, and if you're not subscribed, then please do so. We got more tutorials to come. Later.